self-improvement, self-investment, self-discipline. Those beautiful terminology has been used too much on the internet today. And when you watch the video from Instagram or TikTok talking about these beautiful words, you might notice that they are not giving you anything helpful except for bringing you more anxiety. Firstly, in my opinion, most of the people who are saying you need to be disciplined, they don't know what is self-discipline. When we think about the word discipline, we think about, oh, it's like you are forcing yourself to do something you want to do. And you're gonna feel miserable, you're gonna feel tedious during the time. But actually, self-discipline shouldn't be like this. If you're thinking something like you don't want to do it, and then that's really painful, and you have to overcome it with your own strength, then you're not gonna do it for a long time, because eventually you will get worn, you will get tired. And because, we as human beings, we are animals, it's inevitable. We get tired. That's why we need to eat. But since we're talking about eat, have you ever disciplined yourself to eat every single day? You will notice, no, I eat every single day. Without, people don't need to tell me. I don't need to set a schedule to remind myself to eat when I'm hungry. I don't need to remind myself or force myself to go to the bathroom or drinking water. Why? Because we love eating. That's what we need. We're happy about eating. When eating, we don't feel miserable. And self-discipline should be something like this. Imagine studying something, but you're in school, you feel miserable, you feel so stressed out because you need to study for exams. And when studying, you are learning something people told you to learn. You're following an outline by the professor. You have to schedule yourself so you have the time to do the assignment and exams. But the same thing as we study, if you're just studying something you are interested in, for example, you might be thinking, oh, why the penguin walk like that? They're so adorable, but they walk when shaking their body left and right, left and right. You might be curious about that, right? Or oh, why does my tongue can taste something spicy, and also it tastes something sweet? Is spicy and sweet the same thing? And how does my tongue differentiate them? And you might gonna go to a rabbit hole, you're gonna search online, you're gonna do some self-experiment, you're gonna eat something spicy and sweet to do, to figure it out. And I think the second one is actually the better self-discipline, because you're not actually disciplining yourself while learning stuff. But the crazy thing is, people nowadays actually think that's wasting time, because that's not productive. That's not exchanging for an external acknowledgement. Since I actually read some bio stories about those great figures in science, Isaac Newton, or Einstein, those big brain in the human history, and notice something crazy. Those scientists, none of them learned their knowledge by forced. They didn't gain their genius or knowledge through the school system. Many of them learned by themselves. One of my favorite mathematicians, Joseph Louis Lagrange, he learned math by himself when he was 16 years old. He didn't go to a teacher or go to do some practice problems. He just went to the library and read through those books about math by himself. And he actually became a pretty good at math when he was 17. He is not he doesn't have really high IQ, But the thing he had is that he learned the math systemically by himself. And how we learn math nowadays. For example, I went to university, I went to high school, and we learned calculus. And when most of the people think of calculus, they're going to think, oh, that's something so complex. I can never be able to learn calculus in my life. No. In my opinion, that's something every single human should be able to master as long as their IQ is like normal, is average, and also after the age of 17. The reason that people are so afraid of math is because they actually never learned it properly. Many of the students, when they're learning math, they just memorize the formula, rote memorization. They never try to understand how the formula works. How do you get the formula? Because math is actually a very logical thing. It's like building a tower. You have to put your second brick onto your first brick. You cannot just place your second brick in the middle of air. And that's how you get the mathematician formulas. You have to, have the basic building block in order to have something so complex. And calculus is built based on, many other mathematical stuff. And those are never properly taught during high school, especially, public high schools. And the students just, they just want to pass the course. And it's actually really easy when you are just memorizing those formulas, right? Because the questions in exams they're not that hard. You can easily do the questions when you just, remember the formulas. And you just apply the formulas and you don't have to understand it. But that's going to lead to serious consequences. Is that when you get into university, when you're reaching a point that you have to learn some complicated math, and you're going to find out your old method stop working right now. Like, for example, I try to memorize those, formulas about calculus, like a number's exponential. When you are doing derivative, you move the exponential number in front of the big number or whatever. I already forgot the formula. But do you know how does that work? It's not like you just move a number around in the physical world. In math, it actually means, and big change in the way of calculation. And then most of the students in my class, they just don't care. And actually, when I talked to my math professor at the time, I asked him, how can I be like you? How can I just understand math like how I understand to eat my breakfast? And my math teacher asked me, oh, what's your major? I said, biology. And he said, oh, no, you don't have to. Like, I also mentioned something like, oh, I'm trying to read the books from like Euclid, from ancient Greece. He was like, no, you don't need to. That was like too far. All you need to do is to memorize it and pass exam. I was like, okay, thank you anyways. And I stopped to talk to him after that. I don't think that's how it should be. Firstly, you gotta be respectful to any kind of knowledge, including math, even though it's really boring. And secondly, if I just like learn the math, memorize the math, that's like an average, right? That's most of people doing. And that's not gonna give you a, unique skill. That doesn't make you unique. That doesn't make you unreplaceable. Memorizing equations and applying to questions, AI can do that. AI actually does better than you because AI has better memorization. And that's why you're going to be eventually replaced by ChatGPT, unfortunately. And clearly, my professor was not able to realize that. And afterwards, I start to learn math through like books. There's like a book called The Story for Calculus, a mathematical exploitation, I think that's the name. And I actually learned something, how the calculus was invented, how the first, the formula I just mentioned was formed. I was like, wow, I actually never know that. But until today, I haven't got into some, like, I haven't become a genius on math. Not yet. But it does help me about learning other stuff. For example, I'm really interested in philosophy and, you know, history and those art subjects. And I found out after I learned philosophy, I can actually, easily understand economics. And also, when I understand economics, I can understand history much better. History is not just about memorization of like, oh, this event happened on which year, which day. No, you have to find the principle from the history, and that's how you learn about how human society works. And of course, that's gonna help you with sociology and other stuff. And eventually, that goes to like psychology or stuff. And I can feel like everything connects together. It's like there is a system of knowledge in my brain right now, and every time I see some phenomena, or I learn something new, I can just apply that into my system. I'm not sure if any of you ever experienced that, but if you ever experience something similar, you will know what I'm talking about. That's such a fabulous feeling you can have. Okay, back to our topic, self-discipline. When you are into something, when you are interested in something, you don't need to be disciplined. You will just learn that by yourself. For example, you know, the mathematician I just mentioned, Lagrange, nobody forced him. Like his father didn't watch him to learn math. His father actually want him to be a lawyer. But he was like learning math by himself. Learning math is like a entertainment for him. It's like the same thing as people playing video game, as people playing, scrolling on TikTok and Instagram. It's the same thing for him from learning math. And I'm pretty sure everyone has that interest. For example, if you think about when you're like a kid, you might be interested in doing origami, and that's how, that's just heavily related to like visual, like imagination, 3D imagination. And that's a big part of, I think AI nowadays, actually. And some of us actually really interested in building something. So that's related to engineering and physics. And for example, me, I like to build stuff on the beach with sand. And also, many other people, they might be interested into the flowers or like insects or like animals. Those are really related to biology. And also, people are interested in history. I know a lot of boys, they love history. But many of their parents and school told them they're wasting time. History doesn't make money. Of course, you can't just make money with history itself, but that's gonna teach you a lot. You actually learn from that. You can apply that to your own life, because learn from history. You might gonna find a person in the past that have done the same mistake as you made, and you might gonna learn from that. You're not gonna make the same mistake. And but nowadays, especially under our society, or what do you call capitalist society, we just like making everything. We use the same ruler to measure everything. Is it gonna make money instantly? But our life is not about money. As human being, we should able to have the willing to explore our world with free will. And eventually, one day, you will find out, oh, the field I'm actually digging into brings me money back. How does that work? Sometimes you don't even know if that's gonna bring you money or not. You just love what you're doing, and you become an expert in that, and you become unique. No one can replace you, not even AI. Even AI need to learn from you. And I truly believe curiosity and the ability to learn and explore is an instinct for every single human being. But people nowadays stop having curiosity. They hate learning. They think learning is miserable. And also they think that any knowledge if that doesn't make money, is wasting their time. That's so sad. And I'll talk about this in next episode and how our school system is destroying our curiosity.